Nintendo Cartridge Society presents NCS Classic Edition, The Legend of Zelda, Part 3. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host, Mark Mitchell.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So we're playing The Legend of Zelda.
NES.
Yeah, there's no subtitle here.
Nope.
Just The Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
Zelda, comma, the legend thereof. And so we finally played. Hey, look, sorry about the delay here. There's been a little lag
Yeah.
between our last play session and now.
I mean, I think we were doing every other week versus every week, which we ended up doing with Other M.
Right. Well, and Other M took us a lot more episodes to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot more frustration and just like, what are we doing with our lives? There was a lot more of that with Other M than there is here with The Legend of Zelda. So how much... catch us up, Mark. Where are we?
We just completed the 6th dungeon.
Yes. Which is the one that ends with the Goma. There was just a weird horn. I wonder if that picked up on the mics at all. Yeah. So Goma, like the weird one-eyed spider creature.
Uh-huh.
That
So you have to shoot it with an arrow, and we thought it was going to be like the other bosses where you have to hit him a few times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was getting ready to like bear down and be like, "Ugh, this is gonna be a tough fight. Let's do this."
Well, and it is because he doesn't open his eye for long. So he's going back and forth shooting projectiles at you. He's doing like a crab walk. And
on account of he's like a crab.
And his eye is open for just like brief amounts of time.
Yes.
Get the plurals in there correctly.
Briefs amount of time. Yeah.
Chairmans of the board. Joyce Khan.
Yes. I was gonna give another example, but I couldn't think of. Attorneys General is my favorite. So yes, he pops his eye open for a second, and you're like, "Here goes my first arrow," and it kills him. Goma, it turns out, is a sucker, and you can fell him like a sucker. But okay, so maybe we should go through this in order.
Sure.
So dungeon number 4 ends with that 2-headed dragon guy.
That's where you get the raft.
That's where you get the raft, and we actually did this
Or
one.
no, the ladder. It's where you get the ladder.
The ladder, that's
Yeah,
right.
the
You
ladder.
use the raft to get there.
Yeah.
As a kid, I always liked that this dungeon was within like 4 or 5 screens of where you start. It's, I think, the closest dungeon to where you start, but you need the raft. Like, if you encounter it before, you just see this little dock, and you're like, I don't know what this is. But then you come back to it later, and you're like, oh, raft. I just go over there.
Yeah, it is really cool.
So we get this ladder, and then using the ladder and the raft, we collected those last 2 heart pieces that are on the map. It feels good, right, to like go around and just like collect the stuff that's on the map and
Yeah,
just
because
get
you like
stronger.
see it,
Yeah,
you know, and then to be able to finally acquire it is fun.
yeah. So we've been, as we're playing, we're talking a lot about our experiences with Breath of the Wild. And it's amazing to me how similar these games feel. Like that there's progression is almost like instead of like a steady progression, it's like you hit these hurdles where you're like, I can't fight these guys, they're too hard. And then like you get one thing like a new sword or the ring, which gives us that the defense buff. And like the whole thing, it feels like a game changer.
Yeah,
you know?
we've and that sort of progression is awesome because you are backtracking, not really backtracking, but you're going to the same areas of the map all the time.
Yeah.
So there are certain areas that you begin to dread because the enemies are difficult there.
Yeah.
And then once you get the ring or like better swords, then you can just like blast through it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I became too not cautious because I would just
Cocky?
be like,
Would you say cocky?
I became.
Would you say you got cocky?
I got very cocky because I was just like, oh, I can just walk into any room and just blast everything away. But then you get
right
to the 6th dungeon.
Yeah, I would say the 6th dungeon was the first where we got. Well, no, I don't know. The dark nuts that appear in the 4th and 5th dungeon
Those blue.
We don't like fighting them.
I'm bad at it. Like we were talking about before this, my experience playing Bloodborne on the PS4,
Mhm.
and that game is perfect for the way that I play, which is play like combat games, which is no defense at all. So in Bloodborne, you can run in, and as you take damage, your health meter drops. But then when you deal out damage in return, you can build some of that back up,
Yeah.
and that's great for me because. But then when I play games like this, where you have to be a little more strategic, and by strategic I mean just like stand there and let your shield take the hit, I'm so bad at it. So like the dreadnoughts have been like awful.
Dark nuts.
Dark knots have been
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, they're especially the blue ones, which take, I think they take 4 hits from the white sword. So thank God we had that thing. Otherwise, if they take like twice as many hits, we never would have done it.
When we in the last episode we were talking about how like easy it was, and and then this time we did a little more sharing. Patrick would do the more combat heavy rooms because otherwise I would just keep running in trying to like go commando on the whole thing and then keep dying over and over.
Yeah, and there's no like guarantee that like if I take it, I'm not like the big brother in this scenario where there's always like the myth of the big brother that like you can't get past it, just give the controller to your big brother. Um, I will also fail at these things too. So like, but I think it does.
You just play how you're supposed to play.
Yeah, I think I have a more like combat centric approach to playing Zelda.
Do you play chess? Have you ever played chess?
I have played chess. No, that's not true. I know how the pieces move. Like I've never been able to like play chess strategically.
Oh, see, that's what I was wondering because I feel like it's like a patience thing, and I just don't have patience.
In chess or in Zelda?
In both, because I feel like chess is the same sort of thing where you have to be like, I guess not the same sort of thing at all.
Chess and Zelda are the same thing.
But you have to be strategic and you have to think and you have to plan like steps ahead, and my brain is just like I'll try to do that,
Yeah.
and then it's just like no, just go for it.
Just run. Run. Just start swinging the sword.
Yeah, I try to go Tasmanian devil on it, and it doesn't work anymore.
Nope. Cannot go Tasmanian devil. I like that a lot. All right. So what else has this experience been like?
Well, so the last Temple 5 is otherwise I feel not super remarkable, and but the 6th one with the wizards or sorcerers or whatever they're supposed to be.
Yeah, they're a pain in the butt.
Oh my gosh, I hated them so much.
Yeah, so I think that there's also like before the 6th dungeon, that's when we were like, okay, we've got to finish farming for rupees and get this extra defense, right?
That's another way that Breath of the Wild is like The Legend of Zelda. This game is that they are stingy with rupees.
Oh yeah, super stingy with rupees. But it's so weird that like every now and then you'll encounter, there was one of those like bushes we burned and then like go down and collect 100 rupees, where it's like, that's like a catastrophically big difference between like the normal amount of rupees you encounter.
And it's very different from the more recent Zelda games, like Link Between Worlds.
Yeah.
Where, you have to rent the weapons or buy the weapons, so they're a little less, but you are just like lousy with rupees. Like I can't think of a Zelda game before Breath of the Wild that I wasn't just constantly lousy with rupees.
Right. Or would get to the point where your wallet maxes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I now that we've spent the 250 rupees, like we'll probably get to that point again, but like any opportunity we get to buy a red potion, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
Cuz it's just so good. And it costs like 70 rupees. So I feel like we're going to keep getting knocked down. Like the rupees matter.
Totally. Well, in last episode, again, we talked about how like you can play through the game without getting like theoretically you wouldn't have to get the better sword. Theoretically you
Yes.
wouldn't have to get the better shield. Theoretically you wouldn't have to get the ring. And now that we're a little further into it, I'm like, yeah, I guess that's
Still
technically
technically true. Right.
but it would be impossible. It would be so hard. There has to be speed runs of it. I'm sure people do it all the time.
Right.
But
Without
it
getting all that
feels
stuff.
so challenging. Like again, just those like sorcerers, those
Yeah.
mages, and without the damage reduction from the ring, without the better sword, without the better shield, it's just like how one hit you're dead.
Because I think right now they're dealing 2 hearts of damage when they hit us, and that's with the blue ring. So if that's cutting it in half, if they're normally dealing 4 hearts of damage,
And we have quite a few hearts now.
yeah, well, because we picked up the like 6 or 7 on the map,
Yeah.
and then now we're through 6 of the dungeons plus the 3 you start with. That's 16, I guess.
So I'm curious to see how this unfolds. Like how much more difficult it ramps up.
Yeah,
Because we
got
I
3
think-
more dungeons to go through.
But I think we have all the items, right? That one can acquire.
So there is another ring, but not until the ninth dungeon. Which too late. I think. Too late to be useful. Although I suppose that we could just head to the 9th dungeon right now and try to get it.
And then leave.
And then leave, yeah. But so like in the 6th dungeon, we found ourselves like headed for the boss, without getting the item in there. What's the item? Oh, it's the wand.
Yeah. Which thus far seems like useless.
I mean, if it's a projectile that is dealing damage that we can use without using up rupees or anything, it's nice. I mean, we'll have to see how effective it is on like moblins or whatever on the world map.
I guess that's true. It felt useless in the dungeon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, part of what we're struggling with in the dungeon are those wizards, and the wizards are like, magic? I eat magic for breakfast. Don't throw that magic at me. So we'll see. This is one of those places where we're deep enough into the game where I'm like, I don't really know what the functionality of the wand is. So speaking of things that we don't really know, I made a comment on the last episode about how next time I play this game, I'm just going to make a run for the white sword. And then I got a text from Pete, my buddy Pete, saying, there actually is a barrier to getting the white sword right away. You need a total of 5 hearts before you take it, which is what I interpret master using this and you can have it. So you start the game with just 3 hearts. You need to get at least 2. So theoretically, obviously you can get 2 hearts without going into any dungeons, or you can just do the first 2 dungeons and then you have enough. So there is, I said there was no barrier. There is a barrier. So we were making all kinds of goofs last time because we also thought we were going to be able to finish the game before doing this episode.
That was... Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? There are 9 dungeons in this game and not 7.
Yeah, that's not our fault.
No.
We didn't design it.
We didn't design...
Don't get mad at us. There's 9 dungeons.
Also, I think even if there were just 4 dungeons left, like we needed a little bit of a break after that 6th dungeon, right? Like it was kind of a stressful experience.
Yeah. I mean, and we're playing on the NES Classic Edition, and we've been using save states a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we've been like save scrubbing.
I absolutely would not say that.
Okay. Woo. Yeah. Very good. However, we have been using them maybe 2 or 3, 4 times in a dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At worst. Oh, and on the 6th dungeon, the 5th one we did okay.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the 5th dungeon because I feel like we haven't really talked about it at all.
Partly I feel that like that's because it's not super remarkable. You get the
whistle
recorder.
It's a recorder.
It's a
That's
recorder.
Right. Link has a recital later. His parents don't want to invest in a real instrument, so he plays the recorder.
And you can use that for like warping.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why that would be helpful. I guess just getting around the map without having to.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said for one of those dungeons has to be near a fairy fountain, right? And like just being able to warp over there and like charge up your hearts and then like get back out on the road. I feel like that's a That's pretty useful. Or like warping over to. Yeah, I think we will use it. We
Yeah,
just
that's
haven't
true. I
really
guess
yet.
you would warp to a fairy fountain and then you could warp back to where you came from.
Only if you are near a dungeon you completed, right?
Right.
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 Uh, Also, the whistle recorder. Sorry, the recorder is also used to basically beat the boss of the 5th level. So there's like an old man in a secret room in this dungeon who's like, the thing doesn't like certain noises. The whatever it's called, it's like dig donger or something.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was blowing off. That I was like, oh, that's just like the thing in the instruction booklet that says like the Pole's voice doesn't like noise.
Oh, right, because it's like a circle with an eye in the center.
Yeah, it's like a
And
big
you can't do any damage to it.
right,
And then there's like fireballs or whatever being shot at you from the corners.
right. It's not really attacking you; it's just kind of rolling around. But so I thought that was one of those cues, like, oh shoot, it thinks we still have microphones in our controllers from the Famicom. But no, it turns out there's a different way for us to make noise in the game, and that's by playing the recorder.
Which you have to do, otherwise you can't do any damage to the boss.
Yeah, that's right.
And then once you play that, like his outer protective circle goes away and it's just the eyeball and you can
And you just
attack that. Yeah.
Let me ask you, is that a satisfying boss or a not satisfying boss?
I don't really feel like any of the bosses are very satisfying.
That's a great point. Yeah, and I think he's the only one that you need to have the item in the dungeon to defeat, right?
Thus far, I believe so.
But it's also kind of weird that like that's really all you have to do to beat him.
Well, do you also remember, I think it was the third dungeon or the second dungeon where it was the dinosaurs that you feed bombs to?
Oh yeah, Dodongo.
Yeah, and we were like
They don't like smoke.
and we were expecting that to be really difficult. You know, like I feel like the bosses themselves are fairly simple.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll find that that isn't the case as we get a little bit deeper in. We're getting to the point now where like I only get this far in the game maybe once or twice before in my life. Cuz I like playing old games, but I also like giving up on stuff too. So yeah, I'm excited that what's coming before or coming next is mostly going to be kind of a mystery to me, or at least like not.
Yeah,
the
same.
forefront
I
of my
mean,
mind.
I've only completed this game one time, played and completed this game one time,
Yeah.
and that was almost 10 years ago at this point. So,
Ooh.
played a lot of Zelda in between.
A lot of other Zeldas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Including Breath of the Wild, which we are playing a ton of. What else do we got? What other kind of impressions or other things struck you while we were playing? I like I like how long or like how much of the game we played before we got to the graveyard,
Oh, yeah.
which is like a whole new kind of, because we'd been through like the forest and the deserts and kind of like mountain areas, but really wasn't until we were heading to level 6 that we encountered the graveyard. It's like a whole new like palette, a whole new set of tiles.
Yeah,
and everything.
we went up there to get the sword, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then looped back around because the level 6 is right off of the graveyard. So we grabbed the sword, and this is while we were farming for rupees to get the blue ring.
And I had totally forgotten about the guy who takes 30 rupees from you.
Yeah, yeah. So if you so you're burning stuff to like try and find more rupees and hidden stuff. And then you burn one, you go down, the guy's like, "Hey, pay me to fix that door." And you're out 30 rupees.
So that's slightly extended our
Yeah, our rupee hunt.
uh-huh. But not that long, slightly.
Is that annoying or is it great? Like I can't tell.
I mean, it's a little annoying, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
Where like, oh, that it just adds like texture to the game.
Yeah, and I think only really can make you mad when you're like on a like rupee farming expedition, when you're like, I'm just trying to get rupees as fast as I can, which is what we were doing. But yeah, otherwise it's just like, oh, what? Yeah, it's interesting to think about like how much personality there always are in Zelda games, and like try to think about how the personality that this game projects, like is sort of the forebearer of that. Um, like having an NPC that's just like annoyed with you for no reason. Um, I don't know that feels very Zelda.
And also very like playful.
Yes.
And I think we've talked a lot in the past about a sense of fun that Nintendo games have, and I think that's a great example of it.
Yeah,
Where it's just
absolutely.
like they're just having a little bit of fun with you, you know?
Yeah.
They are breaking your expectations a little bit.
Right. Or the shopkeepers that are like, boy, this stuff is expensive.
Yeah, it's like playful.
Huh? Well, great, Mark. I want to get back in there, and I want to get these last 3 pieces.
Yeah,
of the
I think
Triforce.
this time we are definitively finishing it for sure.
For sure.
Don't get mad at us that there's more than.
Oh yeah, if there turns out to be 12 dungeons, like just chill out.
How are we supposed to know?
How are we supposed to know? It's not like this stuff is available
Or
anywhere.
1,000,000 years old.
No, 21 years old. 31, 86,
Has to be 31.
31. Man, what a long, sad life we've lived. All right, great. Well, so we're gonna get back to it. You're gonna get back to it, and next time we talk, we will have beaten The Legend of Zelda.
Hopefully.
We will have beaten The Legend of Zelda.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?